Hey guys, so I recently posted a video on Instagram where I was using my iPad with Touchdesigner running into the StreamDiffusion TOX by DotSimulates to create this kind of surreal AI animations with some live drawing input. And a lot of people asked me on how I did that, and I thought that's actually a good topic for a tutorial. So that's what I want to cover today. Now this is my first tutorial in Touchdesigner, and if you've never worked with Touchdesigner before, I'm going to try to keep it as beginner friendly as possible, but also I think it's good if you have some knowledge about it already and if you've used it before. Now, if you haven't used Touchdesigner at all, I can highly recommend checking out this page on their website. Now, if you go to the Touchdesigner website, derivative, here you have this Learn tab, and then when you go in here, you have this Touchdesigner curriculum, which is basically a free set of courses that you can do with the Touchdesigner Fundamentals right here, for example. Just taking you through all of the core principles, all of the elements, the different operators, and all of that. So this is just a very well-structured kind of course to get through all of the basics, which I can highly recommend. And then the other core thing is that this is based heavily on DotSimulates StreamDiffusion TOX. That's kind of the core element here, doing all of the AI magic. And you can get this by subscribing to his Patreon. He spent a lot of time developing this, so it's definitely worth supporting what he had done here. And it's $5 a month in the tier where you can get the TOX file. But you can also always, spend a bit more for some more support and some more access. You will also get access to his Discord server to get some support if something is not working, which was very helpful to me at the beginning as well. So yeah, that's the second thing. And then also, he has created a full deep dive 10-minute video on the installation of all of this. And so I'm not going to go too deep into that, and I'm not really going to cover the whole installation process just because that's covered very well in this video, and I'm going to link that in the description below. Because I would just want to focus on the more interactive part and the Touchdesigner setup for that. Going into Touchdesigner, I have an empty project file open right here, and I can load in my TOX, the StreamDiffusion TOX, which I have saved here in the components. Now, if you don't know, you can actually save custom components in the palette next to all of those that exist. Under the My Components tab, you can do a right click, say Add Folder, and then call this whatever folder. And then this will be a folder where you can put in anything that you saved along the way. So any base comp with, I don't know, let's put a noise inside and an output, so an out. Now this base you can drag into here, and you can save this as a sort of preset, which is super handy, and I do that a lot. I just have to, I don't have that much right here now because that's a different computer than the one that I'm usually using. Just a quick side note, very handy to save stuff as presets right here. I have the Streamdiffusion TD, and that's the same as the TOX file as if you would download it from the internet. So I also still have it in the download files here. If I just import this, that's how it would look if you download the file freshly. And if you haven't used it before, then you will need to go here to the Install tab, open this installation guide, and then do all of these steps. Again, this is all covered in the video from DotSimulates, so I recommend checking that out. And I will just start from the point where this is already running. So if you haven't set this up, just pause the video, check out his video, and I'll see you back when this is working. Now you can see that this is running for me now with around 10 FPS, and you can do some tweaking to get this even faster, and this will of course depend on your graphics card. But to be honest, something around this range, like 10 to 15, is something I really enjoy for these kind of AI animations. because it gets this kind of stop motion effect. As soon as it gets like too fast, I find it a bit irritating and like less organic in some way. So that's cool. Now the way that this works is it's it's image to image. So it's feeding in an image here, and then you get the output, which is changed by the prompt input that you have. So to start out, let's just take a circle for now, just so we can see something. And in the circle, I'm gonna set a border width, and then I'm gonna also set the border color to green for now, and slightly thinner maybe. And then I'm gonna set the fill to black, or actually maybe even just turn down the alpha of the fill. So we just have this outline. I'm gonna take this into a switch, just so we can change this later when we take our iPad input. But I just want to first set up the whole Touchdesigner setup and then go to the iPad. So here's our switch. And then what I want to do with this, with our input, like with the drawing later as well, is to kind of animate the whole thing by a displacement. So I'm going to take a displace node. I'm not used to this keyboard. And this automatically connected because I had this connected before. So the displace can already go into the input. And I also want to give this a second input, which is going to be the source for the displacement, and that's going to be a noise. Now if I take this into here, you can see that this is displacing it quite a lot. I am getting a very interesting input already because I have the prompt set to realistic plants. So in here in the prompt block, you have your prompt, which is going to be something like banana for default. You can change that for whatever you like. I have it to plants right now. I'm going to come to the settings of this in a moment. But for now, let's get back to our displacement. And I want to turn this down by a lot. So the displace weight is set to 1, and I want to have this at like 0.05 or something like that. And I'm changing these values by using the middle mouse button and just dragging it to the left, and then you can change the increments by which you can change them. So now you can see that our noise here is affecting the displacement of the ring. And a good way to demonstrate this is by changing the amplitude. So if I have it at 0, then we have a gray image, which is not affecting it at all. And as soon we get some black and white values, the respective colors will displace the image. So the stronger the contrast, the stronger the displacement will be. And I now want to animate this noise, which if you've used Touchdesigner, you know that it's in the transform section here and under the Z translation. Now I'm going to use the apps time.frame expression and divide this by 500 because I know it's going to be too fast by default. And this will give me a nice subtle displacement animation, which already works quite nicely as my input here. So you can see that this is affecting my my image. And now we can have a look at what's going on here. You have your denoise schedule. The fewer steps, basically, the closer it will be to your prompt. And the higher the step value, the more you will be closer to your input image. So you can find a balance here. And I found something between 20 and 30 is a quite nice balance. You can also add steps, but the server has to be stopped for that. So you can add multiple iterations, and theoretically it will get a bit more concrete and a bit better the more steps you have here. But I find that actually one step is totally enough. So I could even delete this one, restart my stream. And I find that for this example and for what I'm trying to do here, one step is totally fine. The guidance scale and the delta I don't really mess too much with in this example. Also, you can now see that having only one step, I immediately have this performance boost to 15 FPS, which is super nice. So yeah, I definitely will just stick to that. And you can see that, again, changing this will affect the image. The other settings that you have right here, if you have a strong graphics card, you can enable this video to video, which will take the previous frames into consideration and do more of like smooth animations. So if you want a bit more consistency, this is definitely what you want to use for that. I'm going to leave that turned off for now because I'm fine with that. The rest is fine. So really, like the most important step here are the steps and the prompts, obviously. So maybe I'll work this out a bit more. I love to use Ernst Haeckel as a reference. If you don't know this book, The Art of Nature is super inspiring. And it's this kind of, this kind of very artistic representations of plants. And this was kind of a main inspiration for this approach. So what else? We could use depth of field maybe. And maybe also something like ornaments. And yeah, I mean, right now it's not too exciting, but even that, you know, I find very interesting. I even love to use it like at a very low setting, just to get this kind of organic sort of motion. I think that just gives it a very interesting touch. In terms of post-processing, I like to use an upscaler if the GPU allows it. So if you have a strong GPU, you can try the NVIDIA upscaler. And the default output of the StreamDiffusion is 512 by 512. In fact, actually, now that I think of it, these circle and the noise are still at the standard resolution of 256. We can change that by selecting both and set it to 512. So now we're working at the same resolution up until here. The output here is also 512, and then I'm running into the upscaler. And if you right click here, you can go to info and check your resolution. It's 1024 in this case. Now, that's because it's using upscale 2, so it's basically multiplying it by 2. You could also upscale 3. Go to the info, and now I have 1280 by 1280, and that's the maximum resolution that you can use in the non-commercial version of Touchdesigner. So I will stick with that for now, which is cool. Another thing that I like to do with these kind of AI outputs is to give it a little bit of noise, to have some texture. And to do that, we can pipe it into a composite node. I'm going to disable this one with the D shortcut. I'm going to also create a null just so I have something at the end. So I can always insert something before that. And that's going to be my viewer. Now, in this composite node, I'm going to add in a noise. Another noise, in fact. And this one, we're going to set the period all the way down to 0. So it's really like the smallest possible. So it's really just like this grain sort of thing. And after that, I'm going to use a level. So I can change the brightness and the contrast. And this is going to go into the composite. Now, as a default, this is set to multiply. I'm going to change that to overlay. And I will also have to change the noise resolution. As you can see, in that case, it's actually downscaling it because it's using the resolution from the noise. And I'll also set this to 1280 by 1280. And this looks quite cool already. I'm gonna also animate this noise. So we have some animated grain, basically. I'm gonna go into the transform tab for that. And again, use my expression appstime.frame. In this case, I can leave it at without any division, because you can just basically generate a new noise every frame, which is basically what I want with the grain. So now if I go into my levels tab, in fact, I'm going to go into the post section here and play with the opacity. So if I take this down to like, I don't know, something like let's do 0.5. I like round numbers. Maybe a bit less, 0.4, something like that. Now, of course, this is all, optional. But I think this is kind of, a bit more organic and nicer in comparison to the input that we had before. So yeah, this is kind of it in terms of my setup inside of Touchdesigner. And the rest is really coming from the iPad. So let's also have a look at that and see how we can actually input the live drawing. So here on my iPad, I have the app installed called Tagtool. So the interface looks like this. You have your sketchpad right here where you can just start drawing. You can select the colors. So it's quite intuitive in a way. And then you can change the size here of your pen tool. And then you also have an eraser. You have some more advanced animations and you can start like animating the stuff. But for now, let's just use the input just by that. You can start exploring the app in more detail on your own. But here in the menu, up to the left, you can set it to start NDI Server. And this is gonna basically send the video of just the output over NDI to the computer as long as you hook them up. So two ways to hook them up. Either you can use Wi-Fi. So if they're connected to the same router, you should be able to just see it directly. I'm going to use a network cable just for a more stable connection. And that's something that's great in general on the iPad, is that you can just use any of those USB-C to Ethernet adapters that, I also use them for the MacBook. You can use the same ones here. And even for the new iPhone with USB-C, you can also just use network adapters, which is great. So basically, this is just hooked up directly into the Ethernet port of my PC. And then in here on the iPad, if I go into the settings, let's see, settings, there will be a new like Ethernet menu popping up. And here you can select your interface. And then if you go into the interface here, you want to configure your IP manually instead of automatic. And then you're going to set some IP address. I set it to 10.0.0.50 with the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. And then on the computer, you do the same thing. In this case, let's check. So you go here into the change adapter options, and then NDI, I actually renamed it, right click it, go to properties, and then here in the IP4 settings, you wanna, instead of automatically using the automatic configuration, you wanna manually set it to something similar, like the same range basically, so 10.0.0, and then I'll give it 55, 255, 255.0. That's good. Okay, close that, play that. And so now in Touchdesigner, if you create a new node with the NDI in, and then here under source name, select the localhost Tagtool. Then here you can see that we have our live input from our iPad, which is nice. And then I can plug this in to my switch as the second input. And then in the switch, change the index to 1. So I'm switching to the second input. And yeah, this is already much more interesting than what we had before. Now I can start drawing here and see how my input changes accordingly. And then play around with the prompt settings. So if I take that down, it will, become a bit more realistic maybe, but it will have less to do with the actual input. And so I really like to keep kind of this balance so you can still recognize the input just enough that you can see what you're affecting. But yeah, this is super nice, and that's basically it. Now, I mean, of course, the fun thing about all of this is that you can use any video input. This doesn't have to be drawing. This can also be like your webcam, for example. So I have my video device in right here. I'm gonna plug that into the switch and use my Logitech webcam here. And so now you can see this is also wild what's going on here. And you could even, make a composite, combine the two of these. There's just endless variations of what you can do with this. And, and yeah, the kind of core principle for me is like with the still image using this displacement in between, just so we have like a some slide animation. And also, if you don't have an iPad, I created this drawing tool. So let me just delete this and plug that into here. I created this drawing tool that reacts to your mouse cursor, and then at first I wanted to do it like so you can click and draw, but that doesn't make sense because you would move around the interface. So I made it with keyboard shortcuts, and like with W you can draw, and then with E you can erase, and with R you can reset the whole thing. And in here in the settings you can also change like stuff like the color, and add in some nice colors and stuff, and then also have like the size of the circle. And it's fun because you can see like the live cursor. I made one where you see the cursor, which is the output, and then one that says no cursor. If you use this, then you won't see the cursor in this output. You will only see it here. And yeah, so if you don't have an iPad or like a tablet, if you want, you can get this. I put it on my Patreon that I just created, and you can get it as a TOX file there. So that's a neat little setup as like a sort of drawing tool, which is fun as well. So let's have a look at how we could also connect that to a projector. Now, to do that, we want to resize this to the native resolution that we are going to send out, which is going to be, in most cases, some sort of 16:9 format, either Full HD or 4K or something like that. I'm going to set it to Full HD. Now, to do that, I'm going to plug that into a fit node. And then in the Commons tab, set the resolution to 1920 by 1080. I guess here you also have the presets for all of these resolutions. And well, yeah, it's going to say you that the resolution of the non-commercial key is limited to 1280 by 1280. It doesn't really matter because it's going to downsize it to whatever is the maximum resolution that is possible with this license. But in the correct aspect ratio. So in that case, it's going to be 1280 by 720. Now that's gone, but it's basically the same thing. So yeah, we can leave it at that. And then just also because it's bugging me, let's remove the alpha channel here. I'm gonna plug that into a transform node. Where's that going? Oh, let's just disconnect that. So transform node, and then here in the background color, set the alpha value to 1, and then comp over background color to on. And so now we are actually compositing over black, so we have a black background. Let me just quickly change, or just draw a little bit here so we can see something again. All right, that's cool. And now we have this transform, and at the end I'm gonna plug that into an out node. And to send this to the projector, we will need a window comp. So I'm gonna go into my comps, select the window, and now it needs some reference of what operator it should display. So I will drag my out into the window operator here, and as you can see, this is now popping up as a background here on the comp. Now you can set this as a perform window, or the easiest case is actually just to open it on a separate window. And if you open it, then you have it here, and you can display it on full screen. You can disable the border. So if you set borders to off, then the borders won't show. And then you can also specify the monitor. So yeah, that's the part where we will have to plug in another projector. Okay, so here you can see I have now plugged in a projector as a separate monitor. Be sure to set it to extend. And then here in the Windows settings, again, you want to set the borders to off. And then if you open it as a separate window, then that will open it on your projector. So yeah, this is, a lot of fun now. If you start actually projecting this onto some more, irregular surfaces or stuff like that, this could be really interesting to do some kind of real-time projection mapping, or as sort of, installation. There's just a lot of possibilities with this whole kind of setup, and it's super fun to play with and to mess around. So that's just like a super fun workflow to explore, and this has so many possibilities. If you think of maybe like projecting this onto some more irregular surfaces and doing some kind of like real-time projection mapping or stuff like that, there's just like 1,000 ways and directions this can go. I hope I could inspire you a bit with this sort of setup, and that everything was clear so far. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.